This is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post, coming to you from the Fort Hall School of Government in Nairobi, Kenya. In this show, we summarize some of the headlines that you might have missed this morning. We also take a look at the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 11th of May, 2022, and I am Miss K.
I am JM.
And I am GK. In case you missed the headlines, here they are. In the Daily Nation, Uhuru's hand in Kalonzo's about turn. In the Standard, intrigues behind Kalonzo's sudden change of heart. And in the Star, Raila's battle plan to win over hustlers. And in the PD, inside Ruto deal with ANC Fort Kenya.
So, we have 89 days to go to the August election. And there is a cardinal rule of messaging in politics that says, to campaign effectively, you've got to motivate people through action and then persuade them through reason. In other words, you campaign in poetry and you govern in prose. Let me put it plainly. Azimio are deep in the throes of prose, while Ruto continues to finesse us with his bottom-up poetry. And that is why Azimio's message is not percolating to the ground. So, how should Azimio do course correction? Simple. Mirror the Ruto strategy. Don't start from what you want people to do or to hear. Start rather from what people want to do and what they want to hear. Let me explain by way of a story, then I wrap it up. In the year 2003, America led the coalition of the willing into the war with Iraq. The war wasn't really on the Iraqi people. It was a war on Saddam Hussein and his tyrannical regime. So the mission of primary thrust was not fighting the Iraqi army per se. It was identifying and removing the key men at the top of Saddam's regime and his military. They numbered about 50 or so, 50 most wanted. But then there was a big problem. The soldiers on the ground didn't know how these Iraqi leaders looked like. So Lieutenant Hans' mom was presented with a problem. There were 50 enemy faces that needed to be studied and memorized. He was asked by the high command how he would get the ordinary soldiers to care enough to study 50 faces. He told them outright that it was no good giving them a book or a pamphlet or an intelligence brief. Any army publication would be used as toilet paper. So he asked himself the question we also ask in politics: how do you reach the target audience? Then he had a bingo moment. Rather than focus on what he wanted the soldiers to do, he would focus on what the soldiers wanted to do. Soldiers spend a lot of time sitting around, and oftentimes they are idle. And how do they pass time? They gamble, they game, and they gamble. And their most played game, poker. And for that, obviously, they need a pack of cards. There are 52 cards in a pack. Everyone studies their cards carefully when they're playing. Each time they play, they get given different cards to study. So everyone knows what the most valuable cards are, and they look out for them. Soldiers look after their cards and they carry them with them everywhere they go on the battlefield. So it was a perfect fit for the lieutenant. The 52 most important members of the Iraqi regime each got a photo on the deck of cards that was supplied to the US military, starting with the most important and then working down. Saddam Hussein himself was the ace of clubs. His sons Uday and Qusay were the other aces on the pack. Then the generals and the leaders of the government, down to the heads of surveillance and torture departments. And by the time the war was finished, ordinary soldiers had found most of the 52 men they were looking for. 13 of those pictured on the cards were dead and 29 were in custody. Back to my question. How should Azimio do course correction? Simple. Mirror Ruto. Ruto is preaching what people want to hear. Raila is preaching what we need to hear. Ruto is peddling hope and the promise of miracles. Overnight millionaires. Raila is selling continuity. At rallies, Ruto is going to the people. Raila is putting up a big tent and calling the people to come and see him. So Azimio would do well to heed the counsel of Lieutenant Hans' mom. You don't start by asking, what do people need to hear? You start by asking the question, what do people want to hear? In other words, you campaign through poetry and govern through prose, not the other way around.
Oh my God, so I'm going to flip this, but I think we're on sort of the same page today.
Yeah.
Today, I wish to prevent Kenyans from further poor mental hygiene. And especially in the season of high politics, where our mental laziness tends to render us vulnerable to the lies about the nature of reality. This is nothing new, and perhaps it has always been the character of political language. But when Ruto tells us the Kenya we have is enough for all of us, and he will expand the opportunities to give everyone a chance at life, we have to question, how does he propose to do this? When the same Ruto who fought the BBI for 2 years plus now says that the constitution ought to be amended, I get absolutely flummoxed.
It is one thing that I would support, that we need to amend the constitution on matters of trying to create gender inclusivity and the other vulnerable groups.
Populist narratives and empty rhetoric can be dangerous. A cautionary tale for Kenya is Sri Lanka. So ahead of the November 2019 election, Sri Lankan presidential challenger Gotabaya Rajapaksa proposed sweeping tax cuts so reckless that the incumbent government thought it must be a campaign gimmick. A dangerous pledge to reduce the value-added tax to 8% from the 15%. Rajapaksa rushed to restore the family's brand of populist authoritarianism. But that strategy quickly backfired. In recent weeks, just recently, Sri Lanka ran out of cash to pay for essential goods like food and fuel.
My goodness.
Sri Lanka is now in full damage control mode. It has stopped paying back foreign debt, defaulting for the first time since independence from the British in 1948.
My goodness.
My point? Whoever governs next in Kenya must continue to do so with some humility. Uhuru understood that sometimes it is better to do the right thing than to be popular. So when Baba outlines his recognition of prior learning policy plan for the Juakali sector, it's not as sexy as bottoms up, but it represents the practical roadmap to enabling a thriving formalized Juakali sector, such that someone in the Juakali can bid for government work. Not just mere slogans to shout in order to inspire the masses. Now, when Raila tells us he will give 6K to the 2 million hardcore poor Kenyans, we can do quick math and we can figure out whether this is actually possible. Now, 6K to 2 million households will cost 12 billion a month. That's 144 billion a year.
Only.
In the context of our national budget, yes, JM, this is just 4% of that.
Yeah.
So committing 4% means credibly uplifting the sufferers of Kenya. If there is a lesson I would recommend without reservation, it is that we must become more aware of the way language shapes reality. Words matter, and they can move us either toward clear and true understandings or toward untruths that are hidden by carefully chosen phrases.
It appears we're all in a marketing mode, and campaigns are in essence marketing, but I'd like to look at it from a different angle. Now this week, Alfred Mutua earned a new title, defector, as he abandoned his allegiance to the Azimio cause and Baba and joined William Ruto. We call him a defector because for Azimio, Mutua's last-minute change of heart is legitimate and somewhat dishonest. After all, he was bound by duty and his signature to the Azimio coalition agreement. But now that Mutua is publicly with Ruto, I would like to call the attention of the Deputy President and Raila to a legal term in marketing called reputation parasitism. Reputational parasitism or reputational leeching refers to a situation where one advertiser uses another's brand's good reputation to market his own product. The idea is to pirate the goodwill attached to the well-known and well-liked brand and use it for the benefit of your small startup. Reputation parasitism is immoral and illegal in some countries like Sweden. Now, in our view, there is an emergence of reputation parasites around Baba and the Deputy President. These are the politicians who are seeking to attach themselves to the political brands built by Raila and Ruto to survive politically. And we know them. But if you don't know them, then a political reputation parasite has 4 main characteristics. One,
break it down.
Let me break it down. They are irrelevant, either because they are new to politics or because they are political have-beens. That is to say, that their days of being politically important are far behind them.
Call them out. Call them out.
I'm calling them out. 2 reputation parasites take before they give. They are bringing nothing in terms of money or votes to Raila and Ruto, but take everything from them.
Yeah.
Maybe they're also too broke and are looking for money to fund their own campaigns.
Yes.
3, political reputation parasites are constant critics of the campaign. Now, there's a difference between those who ask relevant questions and those who question everything. Reputation parasites drain energy from the entire campaign team by questioning every action or decision made. Give me the campaign documents. Did someone just ask for that? 4, political reputation parasites make you feel like you need them. Now, this 4th characteristic is probably the worst, because to exaggerate their irrelevance or relevance, the parasite will infiltrate the coalition, then paint a picture of failure for the coalition unless they accept the parasite's help or make them deputy president. So what should Ruto and Raila do about their respective parasites?
Yeah.
I'd say get rid of them. And maybe also stop accepting each other's strays.
Wow, I like that.
Really good one there.
I've learnt a lot. Reputation, parasitism, and campaigning in poetry and not in prose. Well, we have a 3-part criteria that we use to judge headlines. We ask, are they topical or speculative? Are they repetitive or groundbreaking, thoughtful, or just plain lazy? Right off the bat, I go with the star because it was speaking sort of to what I was talking about. Raila's battle plan to win over hustlers.
I like that headline as well.
Yeah, so we can save a bit of time, toss the rest. Onto the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country, where we also have a 3-part criteria. We ask ourselves, is it humorous or dry? Is it satirical or pessimistic? Is it effective or just plain lazy? And I will begin with the Daily Nation. And in it, we have a very stinky looking ballot box. In it are one Mike Sonko and Sirisia MP John Waluke. And you have the people there trying to cast a vote, but to a very stinky, dirty ballot. And I think this also goes to what Matiangi was saying about we might find a lot of wash people on the ballot.
That's probably
no doubt
true.
Probably coming from a party that is touting wheelbarrows.
Well,
let's move to the Standard.
So in the Standard, we have a caricature of Raila and Ruto, and they are trying to seduce Omanyala. And the title of the cartoon is "The Search for a Running Mate Continues." And this is in reference, obviously, to Omanyala having won this 100-meter competition on Saturday.
Yeah, Kipkeino Classic.
Yes, and Gado here is also giving us a bit of a... I mean, obviously he's celebrating Omanyala.
Yes.
And he is saying that this guy could, for one reason or another, perhaps make a good running mate. I doubt he would. And he says here, if there was a time to run and break another world record, it's now. Perhaps also...
Run away from these two.
Well, that's a good
I
way.
hadn't thought of
That's a good way to put it. A bit of cynicism there on Gado's part, but humorous.
Humorous, I like it.
Yeah.
Let's park. That's my contender for winner.
Okay.
Me too.
Let's move to the Star.
Even though I've not yet read mine. So here in the Star, we have a caricature of a very young-looking Baba. I'm guessing that's him because the features are neither here nor there. But he's holding a bowl, and I'm assuming this is the bowl of the Wakambians. And out of that bowl is jumping Alfred Mutua into the hand of Kenya Kwanza. And inside the bowl are caricatures of, I think in the blueberry would be Charity Ngilu. And since it's a bowl of Wakambas, I'm going to assume that that's Kivuta Kibwana and perhaps Nzioka Waita. I think Medi has to tell us who these are in his caricature bowl.
Yeah.
I think it's showcasing the turmoil in the Ukambani nation after Mutua stepped out of Azimio to join Kenya Kwanza.
Yeah, and a possible thought, could the Kambas be our swing vote with the way they're behaving?
I think it's very possible. They have done that in the past.
Who do we give our winning cartoon? I go with the Standard.
Yes,
I go with
the Standard.
I go with the Standard as well.
Yeah.
Standard gives us our winning cartoon, and we had a winning headline from the Star. I want to leave you with this. To think clearly is a necessary first step towards political regeneration, and that was said by George Orwell. The challenge that faces us, though, at present, is to believe the truth, speak it with a generous spirit, and attempt to persuade others instead of making them our enemies. Find us on YouTube, but also find us on GoTV, Prime Free to Air. Find me on Twitter. And Jim?
Yes, find me on TikTok at Maina Wa Kagema.
And find me on Twitter at J Kambuni.